Okay, so I apparently didn't know this whole time that the public security officers are all based off of the Chinese zodiac, which is a can of worms all in of itself. My goodness, I've already put so much research into everything else. Okay, just a quick recap on other characters. Obviously, Jane Doe is the rat, and the rat is known to be cunning and a survivalist at the same time, which fits her character. And the mythology around the rat is that the ox was supposed to be the first one to the meeting of all the zodiac members, and the rat actually ended up being first because he caught a ride on the ox and then hopped in front right at the last second. Seth is obviously the dog, and the dog is loyal, helpful. The myth is that he was a dog that would help a god capture monsters, which also isn't contradictory to his character either. Qingyi, there's a lot more concerning Qingyi, but Qingyi is represented by the monkey, and the monkey is often associated with Sun Wukong, who is a character in the mythological story of Journey to the West. It's an ancient folklore story in Chinese text, and it honestly probably outlines what Qingyi's story quest might be, or the Hoyoverse creators may have drawn direct inspiration from. The start of the story of Sun Wukong is that he is a stone monkey that was born from a magic rock. No, I'm not making this up. Multiple sources have stated that that's how the story begins. The emperor, or god, basically the god of this world, the emperor of gods, sends someone to look into it, doesn't think it's that big of a deal, and just lets it be. The stone monkey then goes to befriend other monkeys. When he befriends other monkeys, he begins to prove himself in a series of journeys to become the Monkey King. Once he becomes the Monkey King, he was enjoying life and was actually happy for a time until one of his friends dies. And that ran a lot of questions through Sun's mind. So he began searching for immortals to see if he could find a way to cheat death. He didn't find anything on his initial island, so he left his island to a different island to find that there was an immortal on that island that he sought out and had to basically prove himself to, which he eventually did by basically waiting for a long period of time. But once he proved himself to this immortal to ask the questions that he wanted, he first had to train with them, and after training for a long period of time, he began to acquire physical and magical powers and techniques. But before he can answer his question, he wakes up and realizes it was all a dream. But he still somehow retained all the skills that he learned. So was it a dream? I don't know. After acquiring these skills and techniques, Sun Wukong began to prove himself as a worthy warrior, or a very powerful warrior, and the emperor takes notice of this and wants to control him. He does this by making him guard his chariots as well as a peach grove. And peaches have a lot of significance in Chinese culture. They often mean immortality or longevity. Peach Grove has different types of peaches in it that grant different types of immortality. I'm not going to go over the details, it's not too important. Just know that discovers what the peaches can do. He sneaks one for himself and gains immortality. Once he gains immortality, he then proceeds to try to take on the emperor because, he's feeling cocky. Well, this plan fails epically, and he's trapped under a mountain for 500 years. Until a monk comes along, sees his potential, and the monk offers a way for his release if he is to serve the monk for a certain time. He serves the monk for his release and journeys with him to protect him and be his servant. Over the course of this journey, he achieves enlightenment and is awarded the name Victorious Fighting Buddha. And that's basically where the story ends. I believe Sun Wukong learned his lesson. He achieved a certain version of himself that he's proud of, and he lives happily ever after, I guess. Now, what does this story have to do with Qingyi? At first it doesn't seem like much, but once I started grasping the details, just as Sun Wukong was born from magic stone and became a living, stone monkey, that could relate to Qingyi in the way that Qingyi was designed. If she was one of the earlier prototypes, AI-based organism who actually gained sentience and started living on her own, it would make sense that whoever created her kind of took a glance at her, didn't think much of her, just as the emperor kind of took a glance at the stone monkey, didn't think much, and just left them alone. And Qingyi may have been just left to the streets to fend for herself, or she somehow escaped, was left dormant for a time, and she eventually got her own sentience and broke out. We can then assume that Qingyi began to find her own friends, just as the Monkey King found their own friends. However, being an AI unit, she's able to live a whole lot longer than the people around her, and eventually, one way or another, one of her friends may have died. It could be possible that at this point, Qingyi was looking for a way to work around this death or scenario that she came across. I have two scenarios that could be possible. The first scenario is that she comes across a bamboo that can help her, or says he's very proficient with data and can preserve the memories of certain people in his data chip, but he has to prove himself, or Qingyi has to prove herself to him first before he can teach that. And Qingyi does, and when she does, he transfers all his fighting knowledge and other techniques that he has to her, and then suddenly disappears after the data has been transferred, being it as if she woke up from a dream. The other scenario is that she does find a way to preserve her friend's memories and stores it in a bamboo, but then that bamboo mysteriously disappears and she just learns to fight on her own. That seems like a real possibility. And either way, at this point, she loses the bamboo one way or another. In her journey to try to find it again, she becomes acknowledged by the public security and she becomes an official officer. I don't think Qingyi really cares to be an officer at this point, if this theory is any remotely correct. But she does anyway because it might further her purpose in finding this bamboo. Little does she know that it actually gets her in trouble. By some act of violence or looking into restricted files she's not supposed to, she gets in trouble and is demoted with a stain on her record that will prevent her from going up the ranks in public security. And she kind of just stays in, kind of like trapped in a sense, in this lower position for a long time. That is until Zhu Yuan comes along, and either Zhu Yuan or her higher ups, in one way or another, create this deal to wipe Qingyi's record clean if she can prove herself in helping Zhu Yuan in her criminal investigation squad. That is when the main character comes into the picture, Faithen. Zhu Yuan and Qingyi have developed this relationship, and Zhu Yuan wants to help Qingyi find this missing bamboo that holds some sort of treasure to her, whether it's an old master or an old friend holding memory. Either way, in this journey, if we're going off the Sun Wukong story, it's likely that she never finds the bamboo, but in a series of quests, she learns to accept and let go of the bamboo and find herself at a new identity with new friends that helps accept herself for what she is, despite what she started off as just a meaningless experiment. She now sees herself as a person with friends, and whether or not this is through finding the bamboo and its data being corrupted, or just not being able to find it at all, but seeing in some way that her previous friends have moved on in some way, I believe that Qingyi will have a turning point, seeing and accepting herself as someone that can contribute to society today, especially with all the help that she's given to Zhu Yuan. And I believe that's where the story will end, kind of similar to Sun Wukong kind of discovering his own identity and got a new name for himself. Now, obviously, that's all speculation and theories, some of them very far-fetched, so take it with a grain of salt if you want. Or I think it's very likely is that Qingyi does have an identity crisis of some sort, and that is due because of how long she's been alive in both old Eridu and new Eridu. Now she has to come to terms with that, and just the significant amount of detail that goes into this just really makes me appreciate Qingyi's character more and more. And I know I focus a lot on Qingyi, but it's not just her. I feel like every character is given this kind of treatment. I've just focused on Qingyi more because I was able to find the most information on her, and she's the one I like the most of the public security, but we won't get into that. Anyways, regardless, I love the character depth and direction that Hoyoverse puts into their games, especially this game. I went over that in my previous video that a lot of the story is character driven. It's always done in the perspective of factions and how each individual factions is affected with trying to adjust to the life of New Eridu. But basically, public security is a very interesting faction, and this might be a little far-fetched, or this might not be completely accurate, but I feel like a little bit more time and attention has been given to public security, because I feel like the public security faction is like the Leeway or the Xian show of Zenless Zone Zero. Especially the fact that if we take into account that every character is based off the Zodiac, it's very possible to get 8 more public security characters in the future that are based off the rest of the Zodiac. So I think we can look forward to more of this character direction in the future of Zenless Zone Zero. So thank you for watching, and subscribe. And comment if you want. Okay, bye.